as a part of SicEm365 Radio. We're now joined by Bill Peterson, Baylor men's basketball assistant coach of Scott Drew's staff, going Athletes in Action, something I remember back when I was a kid. Not that I ever played in it, but I remember it dates back a long, long time. Peterson joins us on SicEm365 Radio. Bill, thank you very much for your time. How does all this kind of come about, and how important is it just to go branch out and go play? Because I know the men's basketball team at times together has gone overseas. In this particular case, this is Athletes in Action.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on to visit with you about Athletes in Action. Scott Drew has been involved for years with Athletes in Action and having guys take teams overseas and play on those teams. I know a lot of his former players here before I got here. I know Tweety Carter went on a trip, and John Motley went on a trip, and Quincy Acey. So a lot of good players got to go overseas. This year, myself, I'm coaching the team with Coach Ty Beard, our head of video. Our video department here is also going to coach with me and coach some of the games. And we're taking three of our guys, Zach Loveday, LJ Cryer, and Dale Bonner, a transfer from Fairmont State. So it's a great opportunity for them, not only to travel, but to grow spiritually and then to play some really good competition in the summer.
For those guys in particular who, I mean, Loveday and obviously Cryer got a little bit of time, Cryer a little bit more, but got a little bit of time. How much is it just kind of like minor league baseball where you want a guy who you know is going to be good just to go and pitch some innings?
Very, very much so. Great point. It's a really, really big thing for LJ Cryer and Zach Loveday, seeing that, LJ got a little more time than Zach did, but for them to be able to go over to a different country and practice, have training camp for 3 days, and then play 5 games against different countries and different competition, and for them to play a lot of minutes and get a lot of reps is really good. It puts them in a precious situation in the summer to where obviously you don't want to make mistakes, but there's nothing wrong with making mistakes and helping them step. They can play through it. It's not a situation where as soon as they make a mistake, we're going to take them out of the game and set them on the bench. It's an issue where they can learn and play and grow against really high-level competition.
Bill, you have been a part of this staff now for about a half a decade. You have seen where they were, and even then at a high level, and now where they are. Can you try to put into words, other than the obvious of winning the national championship and doing it the way you did as a team, as a program, as a staff, as players, what it means now to people wanting to play at Baylor?
Well, I think one of the things is that, Scott, a couple of years ago, that one of the philosophies we maybe changed or tweaked a little bit in our recruiting was really look for kids that wanted to be in the gym. We have a term called gym rats, guys that would come in on their own and work on their own and get a manager to rebound for them at all hours of the night, not just come to practice, and kids that would voluntarily get in there. And obviously with the kids that we had, they're all leaving now, the Davion Mitchells, the Maceo Teagues, the Mark Vitals, the Jared Butlers. Those guys set a tone when they got here of how hard they worked. Maceo Teague and Davion Mitchell were here at all hours, early in the morning at 6 a.m., 11 o'clock at night with the manager rebounding for them, doing things like that. And we've seen a change in that. We have kids in the gym all the time. Kids will come in at 4 in the afternoon. They'll have workouts at 11. They'll get done workouts, they'll go take a nap, and then they'll be back in here at night. And just their overall work ethic, and that they're doing it together. They're doing it as a group. They're not doing it as individuals. We always say when you come to the gym, bring somebody with you. Don't come by yourself. Bring somebody with you. So we have this new kid here, James Akinjo, who's a great kid, a transfer from Arizona, was a first-team All-Pac-12 player. Well, him and LJ Cryer come to the gym all the time together. I was walking the other day around the concourse, and I looked in the arena, and it's like noon. They had a workout at 8 in the morning, and there's LJ Cryer and James Akinjo in the gym working out with a manager, doing drills and shooting jump shots. And, just that attitude that we're going to get in there and we're going to work. We're going to do it as a group. We're not going to do it as individuals.
How much easier is it to, and recruiting is never easy. No, I'm not ever saying it, but is it more simplified now that you know exactly what you want and the national championship, you've got some skins on the wall, so you don't have to really go out on a limb as much as maybe you would early on in Coach Drew's tenure?
I think the biggest thing is, obviously, it's opened some more doors that in the past maybe weren't open because we've won the national championship. But in that, we have to stay the course. The plan and the philosophy that Scott put together with our staff that was successful, was finding kids that pretty good high character that love to be in the gym, that love to work. Guys that we didn't have to pull here. And, it may be a 5-star kid that's really talented, that loves to play, that we want in our program, and we believe we can really develop and can eventually become a pro and help us win a lot of games. Or it might be a kid that's, maybe a little overlooked, that's not as highly ranked, but he fits what we're looking for. He fits the position. We're still going to recruit the same kind of athletic kids that have that mindset of coming here to get better during their time here in Waco and at Baylor.
Bill, the fact is you're taking 3 players, and Ty Beard, as you mentioned, is also going to be a part of it. North Macedonia is, of course, in the Balkans, I believe, or in Europe.
Yes.
And what does that also mean? Because Athletes in Action's representing whatever is the organization, of course, which you mentioned, but also this is something that these are young men that want to go do things and want to get out around the country or the world. It's kind of like a mission trip in a way in basketball terms.
Yeah,
you got
very much so.
Yeah, and you have to have players you trust to go with you too. That's the kind of player you have.
Yes, we're looking for high character guys that want to have an experience, go outside the country and grow spiritually. We'll have a team time every day, a Bible study led by the tour director, a guy named Mike Siegfried. I've known over 25 years, who Scott knows very well and has been on trips with him too. And we have 8 guys going on the team, and we have some really high-level players. We have a kid that started at Texas A&M named Quentin Jackson, one of the better players in SEC. Yep. We have one of the best players at Texas State, a big kid named Isaiah Small, and we have another kid out of Louisiana, played at Northwestern State, was freshman of the year in his league, and we have a D2 kid from Dallas Baptist and a kid from John Brown in Arkansas. So we have a very balanced team, but all of them are looking for the experience to travel, but also to grow spiritually and to mature. It's one thing to do things in the country, but when you're able to go to a different country and experience a different culture and then, have an enjoyable time and get to play 5 basketball games, it's a good thing for a youngster like that. It's a 10, 11-day trip. So it won't be like they're gone forever, but I know they'll grow and they'll mature and they'll have fun doing it, doing something they love, playing basketball.
Have you ever been to that part of the world?
Yes, I've been there twice. I was the assistant. We had a GA here 2 years ago that played for Scott Drew named Lubo Spartan. He played for him at Valparaiso, and I had gotten to be really good friends with him through the previous years and had worked at camp with him because of my relationship through Scott with him. And I was his U18 assistant coach 2 years ago. And I went to the FIBA National World Championships, FIBA European Championships, and it happened to be held in Macedonia. And I was in Skopje, the town we were going to be playing in, for 10 days with the U18 Czech Republic team as an assistant. So I've been there before. It's a beautiful town. And it's just a really neat part of the world. And I actually have a couple friends there. There's a guy named Joel that he actually runs a pro team, and he's helped set some of this trip up because he's gotten the people we're going to play that are coming to Skopje to play us. We're playing a couple friendly games, and then we'll be in a small tournament with a U20 team out of Macedonia, a U20 team from Ukraine, and a U20 team from Bulgaria. So those are the best players from those countries that are under 20 years old. So it's a big deal over in Europe basketball for teams to travel around and play in events like that.
We know about the young men that are going with you that have been on the team, and of course Dale Bonner, the transfer from Fairmont State. Have you had a chance to kind of watch him enough of what he brings to the table? Yes,
I have. He's very explosive, very quick, and has a nice shot. The thing he needs to work on, he's got to get stronger. He played at a lower level of basketball in Division II, and it wasn't quite as physical. But he's a great kid and is really bought into what we believe in and how we try and groom players and help them get in the weight room. And he's really been dedicated to coming in and working with Charlie Melton extra. If I'm not mistaken, we work out at a certain time every day, whether it's 8 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon with Charlie. And he comes in every day early. He's always there early getting extra work in. And when you have that kind of mindset, and you work like that, you're going to get better. And he needs this year to grow and develop. And I think it'll be a great year for him. And I think he's going to be a really, really good combo guard for us in the future.
You were a part of the Mavericks. You've been a part of the Bucks, obviously Golden State. You've done all that. You've been at the junior college level. You've been at the highest level of Division I basketball as well. So you've been around What are your thoughts about maybe Jason Kidd with the Mavericks, if you don't mind? And then you helped a lot when it came to the development of Michael Finley, and he appears to be in the front office as well.
Yeah, well, first off, I'll talk about somebody I know. Michael Finley is a class person. When I was with the Mavericks, I was hired as the player development coach in 1999, and Donnie Nelson hired me and said, hey, we got a young kid we're drafting from Germany. His name's Dirk Nowitzki, and I want you to spend some time in the gym with him and look over him and just help him for the adjustment. And, I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you I helped him on the floor a whole lot. I helped him more off the floor than anything. I tell people all the time, what if you had a son or daughter that was 18 and you took him to Germany and you got him a job and got him an apartment and then you left and let them go on their own? You spent 2 weeks with them and said, hey, you're on your own. And that's kind of what happened with Dirk. His parents came over here. They put him in a nice place to live. They spent 2 or 3 weeks and then they left. And Dirk was kind of on his own. He'd been to this country on an all-star team before, but I helped him more off the floor, just with different things in our culture. And he had a great work ethic, and I'd go extra with him. And I knew he was going to be a great player. I didn't know he was going to be an all-time great player. I didn't know he was going to be a super all-star, but he had a tremendous work ethic. But during that time I was there, Mike Finley was on the team, and I spent a lot of time after practice working with him and help him with the three-point shot and helping him get the ball down and up to the shooting pocket a little quicker. And he was a really, really kind and generous person and very caring of everybody around him. I remember one night I stayed really late. Like, we practiced from 2 to 4, and it was probably 6 or 7. And Mike had gone in and lifted. He'd gotten a massage, and he'd gotten some rehab. And he came back on the floor and said, hey, I'd like to get some shots in, but if you need to leave, that's okay. And I went, no, this is my job, Mike. I love this kind of stuff, okay? This is why I got hired. So I probably spent an hour with him just rebounding, shooting, and having him do little quickness drills, get his shot off a little quicker. So I saw him last year when I was able to go to a game before COVID, and he came down and visited me before the game, and I'm excited for him. He's a good man, and, for him to have an opportunity like that in the franchise he played for is really special, and I think he'll do a good job. So Jason Kidd, I only know from a distance. I've met him once, but I think, being a former player, I think I read something on HoopSide or something where he said, he was the head coach with the Nets at a younger age and then the Bucks, and that he had learned from some of his mistakes previously, and that, sometimes you can't be quite as critical, and you got to let guys work through their mistakes and be able to move on. And he was a great player, and he knows what it takes to be successful. So hopefully his experiences with the Lakers and has prepared him even more to, help Luka and Porzingis and Tim Hardaway and those guys be prepared to win a championship.
So has Dirk ever had 1 ounce of normal NBA superstar ego to him?
Never. I tell you a good story. I went 2 years ago, I guess it was, when he was still playing, the last year he played. I went to a game, obviously, because I worked there. I know, obviously I knew Donnie really, really well, and Keith Grant in the front office, and one of the scouts was there who played for me. He's a foreign scout named Alvydas Pazdrazis. Anyway, he said, you want to say hi to Dirk? And the game was over, so he took me in the back. I knew where Dirk would be because I knew his routine. He was on the training table. He happened to be eating a little plate of food, and he was icing his knees. I came in there, and right away he jumped up and said, Billy P., how you doing, man?
Wow.
What's going on? And I haven't seen that guy in 5 years. I had not seen him in 5 years. He gave me a big hug, and he sat down and started talking to me. He said, hey, remember when you did this for me when I just first came over here? And remember when we went over? One night I went and helped him buy a bed. He needed a bed for his room. So he said, remember that bed you helped me buy? And so we talked about 30 minutes, and I said, I'm not real big on getting autographs, but I said, hey, would you get? He said, sure. And he went and got me a picture of him scoring his 30,000th point on Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. He autographed for me and is hanging in my office. So never, ever has he ever been like that. I tell people, if he was eating dinner with us and you didn't know it was Dirk, you'd say, man, that guy's a great guy. I love hanging out with him. And he's always been that way, always.
Bill, when we found out David K. was nice enough, when I saw the story that Ashley had posted about Athletes in Action with you and Zach and LJ and also then Dale Bonner. So I asked, I do my homework on you, other than what we know. So I'm supposed to ask you about meat sweats.
Oh, my God. You can't put me on national radio on meat sweats for the first time, huh? Oh, boy. Okay, so here's my meat sweat story, and people listening are going to go, that guy's out of it. I never heard of that. So I'm working in Milwaukee. I'm a scout, assistant coach scout, and one summer I go to scout, and I go to Utah. There's a summer league there, and I go to watch a game, and it ends really late at night. I'm staying in a Courtyard by Marriott. I go back to the hotel. I go and there's a little, like a sports bar pub downstairs. I don't feel like going out. I go down there and get me a big hamburger and a sweet tea and some French fries. It's probably 10:30, 11 o'clock. I go to bed. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up, and I am just sweating like crazy. And I feel sick, all right? I'm hot. I got the shakes a little bit. And this goes on for like 2 hours. And next morning, I get up, and I'm like, man, what is going on? So I get up, and I go work out. I watch the game again, and it's kind of over with. So I come home, and the next Monday morning we have a staff meeting, and somebody says, what are y'all doing? So I tell this story. So Scott Skiles jumps up and says, boy, that's the meat sweat. All right? You never heard of the meat sweat? He said, you ate too much meat after like 9 o'clock at night, and your body had to process all that. It got all tired and sweated out.
Wow.
That's the meat sweat story.
Well,
people tell me that's really true. Yeah. I've had a couple of people say, yeah, I had that too.
It's better than food poisoning, but
that's exactly right.
So what does ship them out mean?
Oh my gosh! Oh, well, when I was in the D League with the Orlando Magic, I was the head coach of the Erie Bayhawks, and we in the D League, the nature of the game is you're moving guys. You're trying to take looks at new players. And my first year there, we probably had I had a roster of 10, and I bet we had 10 different guys come in to fill number 9 and 10, and they'd have 2 weeks or so, and it just got to the point I go, he doesn't get it. He doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't study a scouting report. He's not going to cut it. I'd say, ship him out. Let's go, next one. And I'd bring him in my office, and I'd say, son, I really care for you, David. You're a nice kid, but you know what? You can't show up for practice in the NBA. This is a business. You have to show up early. You have to stretch. You have to do treatment. You have to lift weights. You show up at practice at 10 o'clock, and we start practice at 10:30. You're not ready, so good luck. We're shipping you out. So they tease me all the time because, eventually I tell guys, This is a business, and people pay for when you win. They don't pay when you lose, and when you don't win, you get fired. So we bring you in, I'd sit down, and, most of these kids are right out of college or they played a year or two, and I said, you want to be a pro? Well, that league is 450 of the best players in the world, and there's somebody standing right behind you that's waiting for that opportunity. And in the NBA, there's only about 30 or 40 guys that are, superstars, the rarity guys, Kevin Durant,
sure,
James Harden, Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Well, there's only so many of those guys. And the rest of the league essentially is guys that are role players. They understand a role, they play that role, and they do it all the time. So we were looking for role guys, and I'd say, not good enough. Ship them out right now. Ship them out.
Well, you're just being
the way it works.
Yeah, you're just being honest. Now, you're also known, Bill, and I know we're having you on longer than we asked, but we appreciate it. Again, Bill Peterson, L.J. Cryer, Zach Loveday, and Dale Bonner, among others, from Texas colleges, programs, and elsewhere around the country, going to North Macedonia to compete with athletes in action for about 10 days, a week and a half, against the best of the best in certain areas around that part of the country in Europe. At certain age levels. You are known as well with working with the big men. And we know that Baylor early on had a bunch of guys early on, big men that were like highly recruited and, tremendous players. And one of the first ever was Epe Udo, among others. And I know you've been there 5 years, but you've seen what they've now done. And you've helped with what Flo Thamba or Jonathan Chama-Chachma in a short amount of time, among some of the other big guys. What is it about you and knowing about the big men, and why do you throw the ball at their head so hard?
How do you know all that? How do you know I throw the ball at their head like that?
You know basketball. We know how to do an interview, I think.
Yes, you do. When I was, it kind of started when I was at Colorado State as an assistant coach. That the head coach, the guy named Dale Lair, and he tried to find a niche, and we didn't really have any, and there wasn't a lot of really good players in Colorado. So what we started doing is recruiting a lot of big, tall kids that were 7 foot tall. And most of them that were 6'11", 7 foot were slow, and they couldn't move. And, so I got this idea from when I was younger, because I always did it as a kid, to jump rope. I've never seen a boxer skip rope that couldn't move his feet. So we teach these kids how to skip rope, and Jerome Tang's done a great job with Flo Samba and John Tachamora and, just Mark Vidal, Matt Meyer, those guys that get in here. And the key is doing it with them every day. And we always used to say in the NBA, show me a guy with hands and feet, because we can work and get their feet quicker by skipping the rope, and there's different things we can do to get their hands a little better. So we're looking for their hands and feet. Can they catch a lob? Can they catch a bounce pass? And, when I was in Milwaukee, Epe Udo, I coached him in Milwaukee, but we had a young guy that wasn't very good with his hands, and I thought, I can talk to him all I want, but that doesn't help. I'm obviously much older and have from the old school. When I was a kid, my dad taught me how to swim. He pushed me in the pool, okay, and said, you better learn how to swim.
Yep.
Go, survive. And obviously he was there to help me up, but that's kind of the way I was taught. So I tell them, you need to learn to catch this ball. So I go to the top of the key and I throw the ball 100 miles an hour at them, and in the beginning they can't catch it. They're not used to it. They're just not prepared. And then eventually their eyes and their hands start coming together, and they start snatching it. And we had a guy from VCU named Larry Sanders, was a rookie, and I did that every day for 3 months, and he couldn't catch one. And he'd holler at me and scream and say, this is stupid and all that kind of stuff. And I just keep doing it after practice. And then about 6 months in, he starts snatching every one of them, catching it, dunking it, catching it and dunking it. And the next year he averaged, 10 points and 11 rebounds, and he signed a contract for $44 million because he could go snatch a ball, and he was 6'11" with a 7'5" wingspan. And, I just believe when you fire that ball at them hard enough, they figure a way out to catch it.
Well, that
starts developing them.
You're right, and it works. And you can blame Jerome and Jacobs and Scott and others for us knowing about meat sweats and many others.
We have a great staff.
Oh, you do.
We have one of the best staffs in the country. A.D. Mahaltra and Ty Beard and Jared Nunes, and we just added Jason Smith to help with the NIL legislation that's come about. But this is one of the few staffs I've ever been on in my life, and I'm 64, that, in so many places where you go, coach, the coaches get in there, and one guy recruits this guy, and he's like, you got to play my guy. You got to play my guy. And I recruited this guy, and I did this, and I did that. We don't have that here, and that's one of the reasons we're successful. We argue and we fight, and sometimes, we agree to disagree. I'll say, hey, I disagree with you, Jerome, but that's okay. I respect you and you respect me. Let's move on. And that's what we do. But it's our guys. It's our players. All right. And our kids know that too. We're all pulling for all of them. If Mark Vidal plays well, we're all happy, not just the guy that recruited him, and that's, I think, why we work so well together, is that it's not one guy. It's our group and our organization and the team that's together, that we're all pouring for that guy that we recruited. And the other thing we recruit as a staff. Every Zoom call, all of us are on there. We all have a portion, and that's Scott. Scott puts that together with the other guys. Scott, John, Jerome, and Alvin are the guys that go on the road and watch and play. But when they come to campus, every one of us spends time with them. Every one of us is at a dinner or go to lunch with their parents. And we have moms and dads come in here. There was a mom in here 2 weeks ago, and obviously I can't tell you who,
right,
of a top 30 player in the country. And she said, I am so impressed that every one of your coaches, I spent time with every one of your coaches since I've been here. And a lot of people don't do that. They just don't.
And you can feel it, see it, watch it, and sense it as well along the way. Have you ever disagreed enough with an official during a game as a head coach where you got more than maybe technical fouls?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They probably told you that too. When I was in the D League one night, we were playing in I don't know, Sioux Falls or Reno or somewhere. I just thought they were sticking us, man. They were sticking it up as far as they could, and they were hacking us, and I had enough. And I walked on the floor and hollered at them, and they threw me out. And I said, I ain't got enough. So I kept walking at them and screaming at them. And I'm not I don't swear a whole lot. I just kept saying, this is bull crap. This is garbage. You're cheating, and you ain't called one foul on us. And you called 10 fouls on us, and we haven't shot one free throw, and they've shot 15. I'm not a moron. It doesn't take a engineer or brain surgeon to figure out they're shooting free throws and we're not. It should be a little closer. So So I got fined pretty good for that. And went back in the locker room and sat there the second half and took the L, and then got on a plane and went somewhere else the next night and played again. So, yeah, I've lost my temper a time or two.
Well, hey, that's from somebody like me that has issues with that as well. And we had fun, man. Bill, this has been an incredible the experience of what your knowledge of basketball, and also the trip with Athletes in Action with LJ, Zach, and also Dale and others. It's fantastic. We appreciate it. Enjoy it. And thanks for your time. You too.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. Have a good weekend.
You know, you look at that. That's Bill Peterson, a Baylor men's basketball assistant coach. You think about that. So I sent out a text, and I thought I had included Alvin, and I have on many others when we have somebody else on. And I asked him, hey, we have Bill Peterson, and this is late notice. Tell me something about Bill Peterson other than what we know, because we know about him. And those things came pop, 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 pop from that staff. Appreciate them, the insight as well, and thanks to Bill Peterson. That's awesome. North Macedonia is in the, what would be that, Paul? It's in the southwest of Europe? Southeast Europe, okay.
Next to Albania.
And he's been there before, knows people there, and so comfortable with that area. It's not always the easiest place to be.
It's totally, North Macedonia is kind of a weird, it's totally landlocked all around.
I saw Kosovo's up in there,
Kosovo, Serbia, it's all landlocked all the way around. And so they've got kind of an interesting population. But yeah, North Macedonia, so.
One of the things I never did, and I went to Stephen F. Austin, and it was not a part of the curriculum, or at least maybe if it was, I just wasn't paying attention, or back then it wasn't something available, is one of the things about Baylor, and we have a lot of guys and girls that have been to Baylor, go to Baylor, is the mission trip part. And Armstrong, is that something that is a part of the curriculum that is mandatory? The mission trip? It's not. It's just some people, the opportunities are there and you go. And so that's pretty cool. I don't think that was ever available. If it was, I just didn't read about it, because there surely was no like email or phone calls to me, back in the day. Did you go on a mission trip?
No. I went on a couple.
Other than you going to University of Florida to Gainesville to get drunk.
No. Okay. When I was in middle school and high school, we did projects and things like that, like weekends. But I never went to another country to do anything, and I wish I had.
I did too.
But yeah, I wish I had.
Maybe because I was a military kid and I was around the world anyway, so it wasn't like maybe something that was as on my radar. But I think that's pretty cool. No matter, they're not the only one. Other colleges do it all the time. It's awesome. The mission trip. My mom and dad, who are no longer with us, haven't been since 2015. They've been overseas where they literally were in the mud and helping build a house, and it's hard work, and it's for people who think you sometimes you kind of complain about what goes on around here, and sometimes there are reasons to complain. And then you go to some place as a third world country to help them out and realize what really is tough. All right, when we come back, a very quick break to wrap up. I know that was an extended interview with Bill Peterson. Mac